Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today's Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. I want to once again give you something of a warning, which I hope I'm totally wrong about. This is one instance where I truly, absolutely hope that I am 1,000% wrong in this particular concern that I have. My concern is that broader stock market weakness will pulverize not just the shares of Stronghold Digital Mining, but quite possibly the shares of practically every company in the publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem. Now, the reason I say that is because, as I've alluded to in previous broadcasts, here in the United States, for reasons that are beyond the scope of this broadcast, there is a very difficult environment in our legislative branch. There's dysfunction, one might arguably say. And we are reaching a point where it's very likely, hopefully I'm wrong about all this, but it's likely that there may be a so-called government shutdown. Now, there are some who might argue that shutting the government down is perhaps a good thing, that maybe the people need a break from government. I think from a more pragmatic perspective, financial markets are not likely to rally in the face of a government shutdown. Markets are unlikely to rally in the face of a potential downgrade of U.S. creditworthiness, so to speak. I'm not convinced that markets are likely to rally in the face of what could be a very challenging period of time whereby there is gridlock with regard to how to pass a budget, how to fund basic government operations, while at the same time recognizing the almost insurmountable amount of debt which the government has accumulated over many, many decades across different political parties. And, where we stand right now as it relates to budget deficits, which, in layman's terms, it's like, hey, look, if you're taxing the population, right, and collecting, say, $10 in taxes, but you're spending closer to, say, $30, there's a significant deficit there between what you're collecting and what you're spending. In the case of the United States federal government, I think I've read that budget deficits are approaching $2 trillion. $2 trillion. That's a staggering sum of money. And it's unclear to me that there's a real meaningful plan to bridge that gap. I don't know that the political will exists to dramatically raise taxes. I'm not even sure the people would necessarily want to have their taxes raised, so to speak. And I don't know that there's necessarily the political will to dramatically cut spending. So in the short term, absent a significant wake up in Bitcoin, right, in terms of the price of Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin, absent Bitcoin in the short term really becoming something of a safe haven, which in turn would be great for, publicly traded Bitcoin mining company economics. Absent that happening, it's likely that we're going to be, as I've mentioned in previous broadcasts, really kind of going into a turbulent period of time here. Now, shares of Stronghold Digital Mining dropping to, say, $2.50 a share as a result of a significant overall market dislocation, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what, right, Stronghold Digital Mining is doing as a company, okay? It has more to do with these broader currents of sorts, right, that affect a company like ours, as well as really many other companies. So I share that, but again, I say I hope I'm completely wrong about this. I hope I'm 1,000% wrong, and that things kind of are, continue along their way as they have been. But I'm increasingly concerned that our share price, as well as really that of practically every company that's publicly traded, may really see some significant reduction in price. You know what I mean? A really tumultuous period of time here as a result of what's going on, in terms of, government shutdowns, the fight against inflation, right? The idea that, can a country continue to exist, really, right? When you're just dealing with such what seem to be very like challenging, somewhat insurmountable fiscal imbalances. Now, things will continue on, of course. I'm not suggesting that somehow the country will cease to exist. What I mean metaphorically is, will the U.S. dollar continue to, rally in the face of all this? Will you eventually start to see more of a rush towards, so-called safe haven assets, of which I think at this juncture, Bitcoin, despite being described in the original white paper as, peer-to-peer electronic cash, I think that has been sort of rewritten, so to speak, to perhaps say, a peer-to-peer store of value. So to the extent Bitcoin is going to finally, right, truly live into its full potential as a so-called store of value, this might potentially be one of those catalysts. Yes, we're all saying, hey, it would be great if there's a Bitcoin spot ETF. I agree. That would make it dramatically easier, right, for investors to say, hey, I want to put a portion, right? I want to allocate a portion of my investment dollars in Bitcoin. So certainly a Bitcoin spot ETF would arguably make that process a bit more straightforward. But there are plenty of participants in the Bitcoin ecosystem more broadly today who could certainly decide to allocate more of their investment dollars into Bitcoin. So I'm probably betraying the fact that early on I was somewhat more skeptical about this idea of treating Bitcoin primarily as a store of value as opposed to simply having it be peer-to-peer electronic cash, something that could, from a functional perspective, be used in commerce. But you know what? As the Bitcoin community, I think, decided, the direction that was to be taken was to be a store of value, and that's fine. So I think the good news in all of this is that we are, I think, approaching an inflection point which will test that hypothesis, that thesis, right? That Bitcoin can be a store of value. I think we're getting close to that. And to the extent that we do see a rush into an asset like Bitcoin, right, in the face of broader macroeconomic turmoil, I mean, yes, Stronghold Digital Mining, as well as the other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, certainly have an arguably good case to make for why they might benefit from that. It seems as if, though, when the price of Bitcoin goes up, shares of Stronghold Digital Mining go up, shares of other publicly traded Bitcoin miners go up. Perhaps more important to the bottom line, to the extent Bitcoin mining economics, as measured by hash price, to the extent hash prices go up, we're going to see a very, very, very meaningful, let's phrase it this way, we're going to see some very meaningful revenue numbers potentially come in as a result of that. So we have, and we continue to have, a lot of very positive things going in our direction as a company, meaning Stronghold Digital Mining. I think specific to our business, there are just a multitude of extremely positive things to look forward to. But the stock price trades independent of, what's kind of going on internally, for better or for worse. And so I'll reiterate, one last time. I would not be surprised, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but I would not be surprised if we potentially see our share price really trade lower, dramatically lower, not because necessarily of anything that the company has done, but because of these broader market forces that, as we creep closer and closer and closer to October 1st, absent there being a resolution to some of these budgetary issues. This is a very, U.S. centric commentary I'm making, but to the extent, hey, Stronghold Digital Mining trades on a U.S. market, I think that we could very well see shares of our stock trade a lot lower, which, speaking just for myself, I do see that as a potential interesting entry point. This is an investment advice. I'm just saying, like in my own mind, as I think out loud, I could potentially see that as a very interesting entry point for the accumulation of more shares. I'm just speaking for myself here, because I think we might have, at the same time the share price is tanking, we could very well have some very positive announcements being made regarding, where we're going to place our 25 megawatts of Bitcoin data, Bitcoin mining data infrastructure, data center infrastructure, and other similar types of news announcements. I'm convinced I'm being sarcastic, but we could probably announce, hey, we're being acquired for $30 a share, but given just macroeconomic conditions, we'd still see the stock trade down. Again, I'm being sarcastic, but that's the type of kind of, topsy-turvy, up is down, down is up market environment I feel as if though we're kind of treading into. So as I've said before, let's buckle up, okay? But at the same time, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.